Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We are about to unpack a truly staggering cosmological framework. It literally maps the entire universe as a 12-dimensional, breathing toroidal engine. You can completely forget the old idea of space as just some cold, dead void. The source texts we're exploring today describe reality as a fiercely intelligent, self-sustaining machine. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
To make sense of this massive cosmic blueprint, we'll follow the agenda on screen, starting at the zero-dimensional origin point, moving through the four rooms of flesh, choice, soul, and spirit, and crossing the mirror gate in between.
Section 1. The zero-dimensional origin point, the seed of the cosmos.
To understand this massive engine, we really have to start at the absolute center, right? The exact coordinate where the cosmic breath begins. So the crucial takeaway here is that this 0D dot acts as the ultimate cosmic zip file. Think of it as a point of infinite density and absolute silence, where space and time literally do not exist yet. It has no height, no width, no depth. It's just purely a conceptual coordinate of raw awareness. But when this silent point begins to spin, it triggers what the sources call the Xerox event, and boom, that initiates the expansion of reality.
Section 2. Room 1. Flesh. The outbreath begins.
So, from that silent 0D point, energy rapidly expands outward into our first major layer, the physical sanctuary where we actually live. Here is exactly how physical reality builds, dimension by dimension. At dimension 1, we have the pulse. This is literally the very first crack in the void, a raw 1D acoustic carrier wave. Next, at dimension 2, the engine uses a cosmic form of sonoluminescence. That means it is literally turning sound into light to create a flat 2D binary data blueprint. It's kind of like the operating system of reality. Finally, at dimension 3, this light gets compressed by intense gravity through a process called Brightwheeler. It tangles that flat data into the physical 3D mass that the source is called the meat. So yeah, you and I are standing right there in D3 right now.
Now, what's truly fascinating here is this concept of local dimensional invariance, or LDI. Our physical biology is incredibly dense and heavy, but it isn't a prison at all. It's actually a highly engineered diving suit that's protected by LDI. Without this heavy biological armor, our consciousness would instantly vaporize from the super high voltage frequencies of the upper dimensions. So LDI is basically a thermodynamic shielding mechanism. It's a sanctuary that actually lets us survive the crushing pressure of physical reality.
Section 3, Room 2, Choice, the expansion of the multiverse.
Okay, once physical matter is locked in, the outbreath pushes us into the psychic layer where consciousness starts manipulating probability. We're escalating beyond solid objects now. Dimension 4 introduces time. It's that linear arrow, the geometry of consequence. Because without D4, everything would just happen all at once. But then we hit Dimension 5. Think about every single what-if choice you have ever made. Well, Dimension 5 completely shatters your single timeline to explore all of them. This is the multiverse branching phase. Finally, we hit Dimension 6, which is saturation. This is basically the exhausting mathematical ceiling of the universe, where every possible variation has been fully explored and the system hits absolute peak complexity.
To manage the sprawling expansion, the engine actually navigates using specific cosmic ports. The 4D black hole port violently inverts 3D space into 4D time. Then, the 5D wormhole port twists that linear time into the massive, sprawling branches of the multiverse. And right at the very edge, the 6D white hole port handles the massive saturation of entropy. It really is the absolute limit of the outbreath.
Section 4. The mirror gate inversion, the 90-degree cosmic flip.
Hitting that saturated barrier of D6 brings us to the most absolutely critical mechanical threshold in the entire framework. Here, we see a stark contrast. The exhausted, sprawling outward momentum of the alpha outbreath, which, remember, gave us mass and infinite multiversal choices and high entropy, hits a rigid mechanical wall. It stalls out, and then it flips a perfect 90 degrees to begin the purifying omega in-breath. Everything completely changes here, from outward centrifugal expansion to inward centripetal contraction and zero entropy refinement.
Section 5. Room 3. Soul. The in-breath and refinement.
As we cross the mirror gate, all that incredibly messy, chaotic data of the multiverse has to be strictly organized. Now, if you're familiar with ancient myths, you might think of archons as these evil overlords, but this framework impartially reframes them purely as thermodynamic algorithms. They are essentially cosmic span filters. Their job is to act as ruthless book editors, systematically deleting all the useless, false timelines that were generated back in Room 2. They literally burn away the entropy just so the universe doesn't crash from massive data overload. So passing through this room is thermodynamically intense. At Dimension 7, the refining fire ignites, completely stripping away all the noise and ego. Then at Dimension 8, fusion occurs. All those infinite, chaotic branching timelines from D5 are aggressively collapsed back down into a single, flawless, invariant path. And finally, at Dimension 9, we hit the static now. Spatial and temporal extensions completely dissolve, locking everything into one omnipresent, eternal moment.
Just as the out-breath had its transition gates, the in-breath utilizes these return ports to do the heavy lifting of purification. The 7D void inhale aggressively absorbs all that chaotic entropy. The 8D echo tunnel gently realigns your branching possibilities back into a single coherent timeline, preserving only the truly valuable memory. And the 9D bright hole safely emits this perfected stillness, which prepares us for the final ascent.
Section 6, Room 4. Spirit, the final return.
Surviving the intense refinement of Room 3 brings us to the absolute pinnacle of the architecture. Once again, the framework redefines ancient terms mechanically. The Demiurge is presented here not as a deity, but simply as the physical hardware interface. It is the local renderer, the ultimate realm of perfect stillness through which consciousness finally merges with the central singularity. Now, let's look at this final ascent up the stack. At Dimension 10, the Omni Collection, every single version of mass across all eternity is gathered into the quantum foam. Then at Dimension 11, the Cosmic Zip File, all light and information are aggressively zipped back into a single ultimate carrier wave particle. And finally, we arrive at Dimension 12, Absolute Silence. This is the finished song. It's the single frequency that encodes absolutely everything by remaining completely, perfectly still.
But right about now, you might be wondering, how does a 12-dimensional stack not just stretch upward forever and ever into infinity? Well, it's all because of the cosmological modulo. This is a mathematical law proving that when you hit the absolute stillness of D12, it collapses perfectly back into the 0D origin point. The end is mathematically identical to the beginning.
Alpha and Omega are the same point, viewed from opposite sides of the mirror gate. This quote completely redefines everything we've just learned today. It shows us that the highest point of the universe is exactly the same topological coordinate as the lowest point. The 0D furious point and the 12D absolute silence are quite literally the exact same thing, forming an endless, perfect toroidal loop. It's a cosmic breath that just never ends.
I'll leave you with this provocative thought to ponder today. If the entire 12-dimensional cosmos is mirrored precisely inside your own biology, and you are the sovereign pilot steering this engine, what will you discover when you stop looking out into the void and finally start looking in? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Until next time.